Welcome back everyone, my name is Lance from Dragos Cinematics, and today I'm going to be showing you how to edit A7S III footage. Also, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about the settings that I use on my camera. This video is more or less just for real estate, however, it can be applied to just about anything. Biggest thing for me though, when I first started, was to actually learn the different settings on the camera, using different frame rates and everything like that. My camera was an investment for my business, so I had to invest the time back into the camera in order to learn how to use it properly. Just gonna give a little insight just in case anybody had any questions on how to actually film A7S III footage with real estate. So the first thing you want to note is actually when you're out at the shoot itself, you want to make sure that your camera is all set up for success. So you have all the right settings, the frame rate's correct, the shutter speed's correct. Me personally, I like to use the rule that I keep the shutter speed at about half of my frame rate. Only because when we slow it down in post, it looks just really nice, buttery smooth. It's not choppy at all. You don't get that jittery kind of motion, especially with a gimbal or anything like that. I do like to keep my frame rate at 60 FPS when I shoot real estate. The only reason being is because I'll drop it down to either 30 FPS in post or 24 for the true cinematic feeling. More or less, I do 23.98, which is just the standard. So obviously the first step is to import everything into the project browser itself. From there, I actually have this separated. This is just a recent project I was working on, so have it separated from my drone footage to all my camera footage under that. I like to keep everything consistent, so I just select everything in that project browser. I select all this, right click, modify interpret footage. So what interpreting footage does is it allows you to set just one constant frame rate throughout all the videos in the media browser. So assume frame rate 23.98, that's true cinema quote unquote feeling. Click OK, and now everything in here should be 23.976 or 23.98. All right, so now we have a sequence set up, and I just drag and drop that first clip that we changed, just this one of the living room. Obviously it is slowed down because we did reduce the frame rate, thus the motion gets slower. Not the brightest of houses, but we'll be able to work with it. From here, you wanna find your in and your out point. So let's say this is like the first video that I'm using for the sequence right here. You don't want to really get this point only because you see a lot of this weird little hallway and it really divides the room. As a real estate videographer, your job is to make the rooms a lot bigger than they actually are. So I want to start the video at around this point right here where you just see the whole living room, the nice tungsten lights, and just a little bit of the backyard as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down, bring it a bit back to the beginning. Now I'm going to select my out point. I like to keep a general rule that I usually keep my footage at like 4 to 5 seconds. The only reason I do this is just so the viewers don't get bored. You don't want to be watching the same thing for 10 seconds. There's just no point in that. You can, see enough from this. Obviously, if it is just a little bit of a bigger house with more detail, I'll try to bump it up just a little bit. Maybe even make it go with the music, but it really just depends on the house that we're filming. Something I also don't like to do is use a lot of speed ramps in my video because I think they're a little bit drawn out. For longer walkthroughs, yes, I'll use them, but only when necessary. Like, I'm not gonna use a speed ramp in this room right here. It just wouldn't make sense. But if it is a larger room with more detail, once again, just do a speed ramp. It'll look nice, but don't overdo it. I shoot in color profile PPA. What that is a log profile. So it shoots in RAW. So it really has just no contrast, just we have to build everything up in post-production. We're gonna do that right here, going to lumetri color. This is up to personal preference. I'm colorblind, so I need to use lumetri scopes because I can read those charts and it'll, tell me all the information I need. The picture varies from platform to platform. And by looking at the scopes, what it tells you is how it's going to look on a lot of different devices. So that's why it's really important to use lumetri scopes and not just eyeball it to what looks good, because you can actually see quantitative data, not qualitative data, that we're using to tell you how everything looks. The first thing that I like to do when I'm using my scopes is I'll just find somewhere in the beginning of the clip. And step one, I like to add a little bit of contrast because when you add contrast to the clip, it adds color. This is more or less just for log footage. If you're filming in some other creative profile, it may be a little bit different. This is just for PP8. We're going to just add just a nice little S-curve, nothing too sharp, just to bring a little bit of that color back. some down at the bottom, just a little bit at the top for those highlights and the lows. So something you can see on the scopes is the way that it ranges from 0 to 100, 0 being absolute black and 100 being absolute white. So you see these two little dots up here. These are actually the windows. They're a little bit blown out, only because it was just a brighter day and I was trying to expose to the living room, not as much the outside, because we do have some other clips that we can use for outside. So this is just showing the interior spaces. But I do want to just get, a wider dynamic range through that mid, and I'm fairly happy with that. Within that 70 to 20 range, there's nothing clipping inside. Everything just looks neutral, really nice. And then from there, we want to go into basic correction. The first thing that we want to adjust is just our contrast. You might want to bring it just up, just a drop, and go about 0.2 up. The only reason I do bring up the contrast, not because it really needs it, just because I like the feeling of a more overexposed room. That's just what tends to be liked in the real estate world. We can just play with our highlights, bring those up just a little bit. Let's see, just like keep everything in the middle. So bring those down just about to 9. I do like to bring my shadows down just a bit, so you go around like -13 with the shadows, just so you can see a little bit more the depth of the room. And we'll bring those whites up and the blacks down just a touch too. You don't want anything to really clip. Right under the 100 is usually what I shoot for, and it doesn't really need it, but if it does need saturation, go to vibrant saturation under creative, and then from there you can raise it or lower it as need be. That's pretty much all I really like to do to this footage. I don't really like to mess with any of the HSL secondaries, anything like that, only because I think the image looks pretty good as it is. The house isn't super bright, so sometimes you just got to work with what you got. Something cool though is the A7S III does have dual native ISO, so I shot this at 12,800 ISO, which is limiting the noise in the blacks like crazy. So if I zoom in here, there's a touch of noise, but nothing really too crazy. To remove a little bit more of the noise if need be, if you go back into basic correction, you can drop the shadows down some. It's not necessary, but for just such a small amount of noise, nobody's gonna be zooming in like this. The image looks just really clean as is right now. From there, what you can do to other clips is you can actually just copy and paste the lumetri color from clip to clip. So let's say I want to go to this clip of the living room next, and I'm just gonna take like this portion right here. We'll just like that, and we'll match it up so it's about the same size. Just go there, like that. And so keep the color consistent and everything like that. Obviously, this one is now log. We'll copy the lumetri color from this clip. You can paste it onto this clip. Yeah, it might need a little bit minor tweaking here and there. I think this one just looks a little bit too yellow, just a little bit on the greener side, so lower the temperature about 5. And this one's the same, so sometimes just notice those things. And there we go. So I do want it on the warmer side. It's a South Florida house, so obviously it's not gonna be cold, but towards the yellows, towards the greens over here, we can keep that. And these are just peaking greens just a little bit more. Okay. And I want to drop the exposure down on this, just like that, about 0.1. Okay, and I'm fairly happy with that, and the curves come over when you copy and paste it as well. So just like that, you now have created just a simple, smooth, really clean, almost a walkthrough video of a house. Obviously, I'm not going to show the whole house here, just this is like a basic rundown of it. I don't want to make the video too long, but that's pretty much it. So the steps are as following. You import into the project all of your A7S III footage that was shot in PP8 or Profile Picture 8, which is log. Interpret the frame rate from 60 frames to 23.976 or 30, whatever you preference. You're not going to notice that big of a difference. Put it into your sequence and you color it. And it's really that easy. Like I said, a lot of those lumetri colors, you can just copy and paste them from clip to clip. Keep everything really consistent, really nice, but do make sure that you're using lumetri scope. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, post them down below. If you want me to make another video or another tutorial, I would love to do that as well. So, all right, keep in touch. Appreciate you watching, and have a good one.